Hello friends in Devon. Thank you for letting us bring the ideas of Doughnut Economics into your conversations. My name's Kate Raworth, and today I want to talk about how we've been downscaling the donut of social and planetary boundaries to make it relevant as a tool for places that are looking to transform, so that you can see whether and how it's relevant to the transformations you are bringing about in Devon. But first I want to step back and start with a big picture of the century we're in. Because the last 20 years have begun with crises, from financial meltdown in 2008, in an era of climate breakdown, and most recently hit by COVID lockdown in cities and places all over the world. And the impacts of these crises are of course massively increased by sharp inequalities of gender and race, of wealth and power, global north and global south. So we need a new vision of human prosperity and progress that's fit for the 21st century. And so I offer you a donut, the only one that turns out to be any good for us. Think of it as a compass for human prosperity in the 21st century. The hole in the middle is a place where people are left falling short on the essentials of life, without the food, healthcare, housing, gender equality, political voice, income that every person has a claim to. These come from the Sustainable Development Goals that have been agreed by all governments in the world. So get everybody over the social foundation and into the donut itself. But at the same time, we must stay within the ecological ceiling, because otherwise we push ourselves beyond planetary boundaries and break down Earth's life-supporting systems, causing climate breakdown, ocean acidification, critical levels of biodiversity loss. These 9 planetary boundaries define the safe space for humanity. So the goal of the donut is to meet the needs of all people within the means of the planet. It sounds simple, but we are so far out of that balance right now. Billions of people worldwide can't meet their most essential needs, and we know that they live mostly in poor countries, but also in the midst of our rich countries. At the same time, we have already overshot multiple planetary boundaries. Last century's business leaders and politicians and community leaders never saw this picture. So why would we think that the proposals and policies and initiatives that they came up with would in any way solve its challenges? We need to come up with solutions of our own, fit for the challenges that we recognise as our own. Now this donut is at the global scale, but of course most policy and action happens locally, in nations, in towns, in villages, in neighbourhoods. So what if we could downscale this to a place? And that's the work we've been doing over the past year with our friends at Biomimicry 3.8, Circle Economy and C40 Cities. We've downscaled the concept of the donut to the scale of a city for Portland, Amsterdam and Philadelphia. And it starts with the critical question that I invite you to ask of the place you're in. How can our city be a home to thriving people in a thriving place while respecting the well-being of all people and the health of the whole planet? And this breaks down into 4 questions. Again, I invite you to listen to it through the ears of where you are, whether it's a city or a neighbourhood or a town or a nation. We start with the local social question. What would it mean for the people of your city to thrive? That's best determined by the people of your place itself. And how are you thriving against the best available indicators that tell you the state of play? What would it mean for your city to thrive within its natural habitat? What if your place were as generous as the wildland next door? If your town or city sequestered as much carbon dioxide as the nearby forest, it housed as much biodiversity, stored as much groundwater, it cooled the air from the treetops to the forest floor. What if our cities were as generous as nature? These 2 make up the local aspiration, thriving people in a thriving place. But we have to recognise that every city, every town, every neighbourhood is embedded in the world and draws upon global resources. So what would it mean for your city to respect the health of the whole planet? All the resources that are embedded in the food that are imported, the clothes that people buy, the electronics, the construction materials, all the consumer and construction goods that are coming into your place to make life work. How can your place live within its fair ecological impact upon the planet? And think of all that food and clothing and electronics and construction material. Who made them? Who dug them? Who stitched them? Who picked them? What are the labour rights of people worldwide in those global supply chains on which our lives depend? So these are the 4 questions of the city portrait. And this is what it looks like on the page when we did it for the city of Amsterdam. The dark grey boxes show you the city's targets, where they have them in each of these areas. And then the light grey show an illustrative snapshot, the best available statistic, telling us where the city is right now. We held workshops with city policymakers and community members in Philadelphia, Portland, and Amsterdam to explore their city portrait, to start drawing connections between all of those 4 quadrants. And it became clear that this was a really valuable tool for getting a holistic picture that had never been seen before by people whose jobs had only held them looking from one perspective in one department. Here's an example of how the portrait can be used from Amsterdam on the question of housing. They know they have a challenge with housing, but recognise that simply building more houses in the way they've always done will drive climate change. So they have to find a new solution. Their plan is to have a circular city where resources are used again and again, far more carefully, collectively and equitably, including in the construction sector. And this gives a chance not only of tackling climate change, but air pollution, reducing waste generation and excessive land conversion. It gives a chance to build housing in a way that sequesters carbon in the very timbers of the building, that harvests energy through solar panels or food farms on the roofs of the building, that supports biodiversity through niches built into the walls. There's a chance to improve the health, the community, income and jobs and diversity in the city through how those houses are constructed, who they're for, who gets to live in those communities. And there's a chance to ensure that the becoming circular improves conditions of work and health and security for communities worldwide who have been supplying those materials. So this is one way that the city can use such a holistic view to take a far more strategic take on housing challenges it faces. We're really excited about the possibility of turning this public portrait based on publicly available targets and statistics into a city selfie. What if the community of the city or the town or the place took this starting point and made it their own, bringing in all the initiatives that are underway to create transformation, looking at all the profound interconnections and synergies between the work that's already going on, bringing in the voice, people's values, people's aspirations in all of these areas, bringing in quotes from lived experience, stories, histories from different neighbourhoods, and then recognising possibilities for new initiatives that could be undertaken that will tackle multiple of these challenges at the same time. What if this city selfie were done through the lens of food, or through the lens of energy, or through the lens of housing? There are many ways that this can be constructed. Amsterdam's city portrait was published at the beginning of April, and since its publication we've had expressions of interest from across the world, including all of these places in the UK, where there's interest from citizens or councils or community organisations to downscale the donut for where they are. I love this image of possibility. It makes me think of my favourite wrapping paper. These wonderful donuts from a city to a neighbourhood to a town, many, many donuts of places. What if we could transform the way we govern ourselves, the metrics we live by, into these multiple visions of thriving in the donut? If that sounds appealing to you, here's how you can get involved now. Join us on Twitter at Doughnut Econ, where we're posting all of our news, including in July we'll be posting the methodology that we use to downscale the city portrait for Amsterdam, so you can start figuring out how you'd want to adapt that to your place. And from September we'll be launching our website and our community platform. Join us, because you'll find there many change makers who, like yourself, want to turn Doughnut Economics from a radical idea into a really transformative tool for action and bring about the transformation that we already know that we desperately want and need and can make happen. So that's how we've downscaled the donut. We hope it inspires conversation and ambition for bringing about transformation where you live. Thanks very much.